Oh, today, Dr. Tuby, we have you on our podcast. It is so good to have you here with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we are delighted to have Dr. Tuby Akinlosotu with us, formidable leader in the business empowerment and personal development. With over 30 years of expertise in corporate sales, education, and events, Dr. Tuby helps business owners scale through strategic speaking systems and events. Her inspiring journey from immigrant and single mom to CEO showcases her resilience and determination. Holding a doctorate in organizational leadership, she passionately supports entrepreneurs in overcoming obstacles and achieving success. Through programs like Thrive, Resilient Leader Academy, and the Resilient Business Bootcamp, Dr. Tuby empowers business owners to grow sustainably while maintaining well-being. Known as the ultimate powerhouse, she equips women entrepreneurs with the tools to thrive with clarity and confidence. Join us as Dr. Tuby shares her transformative strategies for building resilient businesses and achieving sustainable success. She helps entrepreneurs build a resilient business and scale through speaking, sales, systems, and strategic events. Awesome. So good.
Yes.
Got a lot going on there, Dr. Tuby.
Yeah, a mouthful, isn't it?
So good.
You did great.
I'm so excited to dive into your story and your journey and how you're helping people in your amazing journey and your business. So let's start, I suppose, the beginning, your life journey from an immigrant, single mom, to a successful CEO. Can you give us some kind of background story and give us some highlight and insights, what was going on, where you come from, that type of stuff?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. Yeah, so I came here at the age of 6 years old, moved here with my parents, firstborn of four children.
Yeah. Just so the audience knows, where is he at?
I moved here from Nigeria.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
came to this
Dude.
country, speak English, went through the school system, had some interesting times in the school system, a lot of bullying and a lot of to fit in and things like that. And eventually went through that process. And then I eventually became an English teacher. This was an interesting twist because went from not speaking English to becoming an English teacher. I was a single mom, but I'm married now. I've been married for 18 years, June 30th. There was a journey where I was a single mom for some years and juggled several jobs at the same time, going to school and doing all that. And then I eventually got married and then we started the event company and everything just went up from there. But it's a long journey all the way from starting when I was 6 years old.
Wow, 6 years old. Is that when you moved to the US?
Yeah.
So at that point, everything was probably very new for you, very different. I mean, from a different country. How was your English at that point?
So no English. I didn't speak English at 6 years old. Went to the
Wow.
school system and the teachers were telling my parents, you've got to speak English to her so she can learn. So they started speaking English to me at home. And then I lost my native language because I eventually had to learn English.
Well, your English sounds incredible now. So it's obviously been a journey to learn. What was it like in those first few years when you were trying to get the grasp of English?
Very interesting because I still remember even being six, like nobody could teach me because they only had like ESL then, English as a second language, but nobody understood my language of Yoruba. And so I remember like coming home and reading the dictionary, studying words, my parents helping me. But eventually, I think it took me a year and a half to learn English. I remember, yeah, they put me in the courses and my parents were very determined. I think they got me tutoring, very determined to get me to learn English. So I still remember that, but now that I look back, well, that was a good experience to go through such a huge goal to say, well, there's nobody that
I
understand, but I'm going to have to figure this thing out.
I know people that have been speaking English their whole life and still haven't mastered it.
Yeah.
So well done, like a year and a half and you were getting a handle on it. It's crazy. Good. So in going through that journey and the process, do you feel that there was learnings for you as an entrepreneur during this time in your life? I
Yes.
know you were pretty young, but if you look back, do you feel like you've learned from this growth that you had?
Yeah, because I actually started my first business at the age of 17. I
Wow.
really believe that
And what was that?
part of going through that just really got me to be more mature. Went back home, went back to Nigeria at the age of 17, got inspired when I saw the people at the marketplace and people having their own businesses. I just got so inspired. I just came back to the United States and I was so pumped to start my own business at the age of 17. So I did. And so I started a catering business. And then ever since then, I've been an entrepreneur. So that's why I say 30 years and counting. That's, yeah, 31 years as an entrepreneur from the age of 17.
So good. Tell me, what was your first business again?
My
Is
first
that
business
correct?
was a catering business. I've been in it for 31 years. Started with a catering business, and then I went to event rental business.
What was your thought process to starting a catering business? Like, where did that come from?
I think it just came from my mom. She loves food. She loves serving people, and I just always watch her cook. What I realize now is I love working with my hands. And I realized that every position I've ever had to do something creative. So at that moment, what I knew to do was like, oh, I love to cook. Mom used to cook, and I just started a catering business. I don't know. It was just a desire for me at that time.
And so that was your first business venture. How did that go?
I think it went well because my very first order, I remember I used to make my own barbecue sauce, and I made this flyer, and I had a briefcase, and I looked up the yellow pages for businesses, and I went with
Yellow
samples.
page.
And then I
What's
went and
that?
I said, hey, who's in charge of your ordering? And I gave them my sample. And I remember the lady tasting it and saying, who made this? And I said, me. And then she said, hold on. And she brought the lady that was in charge. And then they hired me to do their company 4th of July picnic. And I remember it was like $4 a person. I was so excited. Back then, $4 was like a lot. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. And I went, called my parents. I was like, I just landed my first catering order. And like, they want me to cater for the whole company for $4 a person. And that was literally like maybe a week after I launched my business. I got a big company to say yes to my order, to my business. So that was really amazing. That was a good feeling.
That was a confidence booster, right? Like something that shifts inside of you when something like that happens,
Yeah,
right?
it was really
So yeah,
good. I
good.
just knew then that anything I launched would be successful. So launched the next business, then eventually launched my event business. Now I launched my coaching business. And that same confidence and that same energy carried me through all my different launches.
Do you think that that moment when you had that first client come and purchase from you or to work with them, what did that do for you internally? Like, what was that moment like?
I think that moment is just like, wow, someone believes in something I'm doing. Like it just was definitely a confidence booster, definitely confirmation that you have something to offer to the world. Many times we feel like we don't have something to offer, we don't have value. And even though we do, it's just like someone saying yes to you and willing to pay you. It just does so much for your confidence, for your psyche, for everything. And so that moment really, I think, was a big shift in the way I viewed business and the way I viewed risks and people just presentation. Like if I didn't just decide to make that day and just go in my car, and go through yellow pages and walk up to some companies and say, hey, who's in charge of your thing? Then that person would have said yes. So it really shifted my mindset around putting yourself out there, having the confidence and having the boldness to say, hey, this is what I'm offering, and just asking, hey, who's in charge? That did a lot for me. I still operate on that right now with the boldness of being able to ask, to make an offer, I guess, now that I'm making offers. And so something that I think you can see where it came from, and I think is really planted a seed in.
Right. That's so good. So a lot of people are afraid to just go out and ask. What made you just go out and ask? Like, were your parents involved in this? How did that all happen? Like you just made the decision to go out and ask. That's bold.
Yeah. I think sometimes in life when you just have no choices, I mean, at that time I was a single mom and it was just like, hey, we got to get something going. And,
Yeah.
working for companies, I worked at Wendy's on my first job, then I worked a sales job. You know, I think going back to Nigeria and seeing people hustle and be an entrepreneur and realizing that we had that opportunity here in the United States, but the people weren't taking it, and seeing how they were taking it shifted something in me that, hey, why am I just working for minimum wage? Why don't I just start a business? And so I just knew that if I was going to start something, I'm going to have to be bold to get clients. And so I don't know what it was. It wasn't my parents. I do remember working for my dad because he actually, let me take that back. Now that I think about it, my grandmother owned a cocoa farm in Nigeria. One of my grandmothers, my other grandmother owned a wedding business. So it's so funny because she's late now. Both of them are late. But my
Yeah.
mom's always like, you took after your grandmother because she had a wedding business. She had a cake business. So maybe that's what it was. I didn't know when I was growing up. Maybe it's just like passed down the interest in weddings and cakes and stuff. So she had a wedding dress business, cake business, and my other grandmother owned a cocoa farm.
Wow.
Entrepreneurship was always in our blood. And then my dad, when he
Amen.
came here, started a consulting business. And that was one of my first jobs too, working for him. So I think the whole thing about being an entrepreneur was just always there. And so it didn't seem unfamiliar when I stepped into it myself.
But yes, that's so powerful. And your family can have a huge impact on it. My grandparents had a huge impact on my entrepreneurial journey. When I look back at it, you were the one that made the decisions, right? You were the one that's been out there doing the thing. Credit you for being bold and taking those first actions. From what I'm hearing, oftentimes when our back is against the wall, you can either crumble or you can go out and do something. You decided to do something, right?
Absolutely.
So you got rid of that business, or you evolved from that business and you went on to bigger, better, different things. Talk to me about those next steps. What happened after that?
Yeah, so I have a catering business. And after that, we launched an event business, which was like an extension of the catering business because we realized people need a table. Why don't we do
Yeah.
it? So we did another business and then launched another event business, which is like a luxury line, luxury event business. So basically, that's how I've been in the event industry for 30 plus years, is that everything was just an extension, like an upgrade. What's the next thing we could do in events? And so that's how that's been going. And so I still have the event business. We operate under Finer Details Luxury Events, and we do lots of events, weddings, corporate events. And we've done so many events over the years. So yeah, that's pretty much how that evolved. And it's still something that I love doing. I love having a vision and seeing things happen, love putting things together. It all went back to, as you can see, the progression of catering to decor and then working with my hands. I was still working with my hand. And then eventually I started working more with my brain when I would create the vision of the
Yeah.
room and tell people what to do and stuff. So it's been a really interesting progression of my skill set as I moved up in the event industry.
So it's so evolutionary. I love that. So the catering business is still part of that whole process, or did the catering side end, or how did
Oh
that,
yeah, I don't do
did it
catering
evolve?
anymore. No more catering. We were doing catering and events and we were running around and we were like, something has to go. So we got rid of the
Gotcha.
catering and we focused on just rentals. And then we scaled up during COVID. We lost everything. In COVID 2020, we had lost 140,000 of revenue in March. And then
Wow.
that's when I decided to set minimums and we started doing luxury events. So my finer detailed luxury events
Wow.
started scaling up and we started only taking certain clients. And that's how we were able to stay afloat in the event business. And that became a trend for us. And that actually revolutionized the way we do business and actually pushed us up there as far as events, because we stopped doing all little events. I was like, the only way we're going to make it in COVID is for us to like charge more and start packaging things up. And we're like, okay, we're going to do a 20K minimum. I started charging for my vision. So like somebody wanted to work with me, it'd be like 5K. Then I moved it to 10K just to have a visionary meeting with me, just for me to put things
Yeah.
together. And so it's been an amazing
Wow.
process because I left catering, even left physically working for the business. I no longer physically do anything.
Yeah.
I just oversee and I bring vision. And so it's been an amazing transformation to still be able to be part of something I love, but not be hands in and hands off.
That's such an extraordinary gift that a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, aspire to, but never quite achieve, is the ability to step away from running the business rather than managing the business,
Yeah.
which it sounds to me like you've kind of mastered a bit now. Talk to me about that journey. What did that look like? Because it's not easy and you've got to have stuff in place to make that happen.
Yeah.
I'd like to know this process of it and then maybe the mindset of it, if you could dive a bit into that.
Yeah. So like I mentioned back in COVID when it was March 2020 and they said no more events and we lost all that revenue and we had to move from 2 different warehouses. My son was coming home. He's 9 years old at the time. I had to homeschool him. We had lost some family members. It was just a really crazy time. And I just remember asking God, what do you want me to do? And he said, go back to school. And I'm like, go back to school. At that time, I wasn't a doctor. So he said, go back and write your dissertation. And that was going to be my way out or something. And I didn't know how it was going to be. I trusted. But in that time, I realized, how could I run the business and still be in school? And so I had to get somebody. Luckily, somebody emailed me, which I didn't even put an ad out, which was just, favor.
Wow.
And she didn't have any experience in the industry, but I ended up training her. So when I was training her, I was like, okay, the only way I'm going to be able to focus, I'm going to have to make sure she doesn't call me. So then I started scripting everything out. I started like, what do you say on the phone? What do you do on the emails? And here's all our inventory. I created a whole system for all our inventory prices, measurement, everything you need to know so that you don't bother me. I systemized everything. But at the time, I was doing it for me. I didn't realize I was creating like SOPs and systems. And I was just like, I got to create something so that it was just me. It was me and my husband and admin. I was always the admin person. And I was like, the only way I'm going to get things done is to no longer be the admin person. But the only way
Yeah.
to get people sufficient is to give them all the answers. So I created all the answers and I started creating videos, how-to videos, everything so that they could be self-sufficient. I put on a Google Drive, and then that's what happened. And so I went to write my dissertation. I trained her, and I looked up a year later, we had 3x revenue and during COVID, one of the most difficult
Wow.
time. And then when I went back and looked, and I was like, how did I do that? And that's where my resilient business blueprint birthed, because I realized that part of that was that I created the systems that allowed me to walk away, still run a business. And so that is what I operate on now, is the ability to still have the event business and have another business and not even be in the event business, still doing really great and then be able to do good over here. So that was an accidental thing, but it really shifted everything because I stopped being the go-to person. I stopped being in the business. I've freed up so much time. I was able to go to conferences,
Wow.
vacations, so many things. And I just realized that, wow, if more entrepreneurs could set this up, they can have so much freedom in their business. And that's when I became so passionate about systems and, resilience and boundaries, because I started setting major boundaries during that time. We were saying no to
Yeah.
small order. We were saying no to working on Sundays. We were saying no to so much stuff. And that's when I realized that I was setting personal boundaries and professional boundaries. We increased our prices. So I was setting value boundaries. I was setting price minimums. So I basically looked and I said, what did I do during that period? And then I documented everything I did. And that is where my resilient business blueprint came. And I was like, wow, more people need to do this, because that's what gave me the freedom to be able to do other things.
That's so cool. I love this whole context of you being able to step away from your business. I think there's so much value in understanding the process of this. Some of the great takeaways I've taken from you right now is to set boundaries. Boundaries seem to be a very important part of the process. Talk to me a bit about these boundaries and what that means for you or for any entrepreneur listening to this.
Yeah, because basically, as entrepreneurs, we're pulled in so many different directions. So we have our home life, we have our business life. And if you don't have real boundaries put in place, you're going to find yourself stretched thin. You're going to be on the verge of burnout, because you're going to be saying yes to everything but yourself. You're going to say yes to your clients, yes to meetings, yes to working all hours of the day. And so when you really understand the power of boundaries, which is boundaries are not a wall, boundaries are a bridge. It just shows people how to respect you. And it gives like a formula for how you operate, basically. So it's like, do you work on Sundays? No, I don't work on Sundays. Do I work on my birthday? No. Do I work on my husband's birthday? No. Will I do this for this price? No. Can you pay me under the table so you don't pay taxes? No. So it's like, what are the boundaries? And so I do this with some of my clients, where we sit down and actually write down what are their personal boundaries and then what are their professional boundaries in their business. A lot of
Yeah.
times what happens is we don't know what our boundaries are. And when you don't know them, you can't enforce them, you can't communicate them. So you really need to
Yeah.
sit down and think about, like, what are the boundaries? And the thing is, a lot of people walking around with no boundaries. And so that's why they're people pleasing. They're saying yes to
Yeah.
everything. They're tired,
Yeah.
and they can't really be functional and productive because they're all over the place. So if you have strict
Yeah.
boundaries in place, and then once you have them, what I do is I encourage people to communicate them. And also to, when I say enforce, it sounds bad, but when you enforce it, it's just reinforcing. Like if someone says that, you know what, I actually don't do that, but I would like to refer you to someone that does. And once you start to reinforce and enforce your boundaries, people know. Like, let me give you an example. Because I don't work on Sundays, anybody texts me on a Sunday, I don't respond if it's for business.
Cool.
And I don't
Yeah.
respond to my email, and it says what days, what hours I work. So when I go back to work on
Yeah.
Monday, on my start time, I'll say, oh, received your email. Sorry, I don't work on Sunday. Now that is just communicating my boundary. And guess what? The next time they're going to think about that before they email me on Sunday or text me on a Sunday, because, oh, she doesn't work on Sunday. So there's little ways you communicate your boundaries. It actually helps people respect you more, and you have a higher value, because when somebody has no values, no boundaries, that means they can be a yo-yo. People can treat you anyhow. When you communicate that you have boundaries, that means you communicate that you value yourself. And it actually really helps with your prices too. Because once I started doing that, I started charging more because I was demanding more. And people saw me as
Yeah.
like a luxury. Oh, in order to get her, and like if you want, like I would work on a Sunday, but get me to work on a Sunday, you'd have to pay like 5 times my price. You know what I mean? Boundaries is so powerful, Matthew. Like I get so
Yeah.
passionate about it. My secret sauce to success in my business is this powerful boundaries. Set them,
I love it.
communicate them, make sure you have personal, professional, and I love to have value boundaries, pricing boundaries,
Oh,
boundaries in everything. And then they should be written down and everybody that works with you should know your boundaries, especially if you have a business. They should know the boundaries. And guess one of the ways you communicate your boundaries? The contracts. And a lot of
right.
entrepreneurs are
Got
not having
Yeah.
those. If you put them in the contracts, people, they might not read it, but it's there. And you refer them back to it. Oh, according to our contract,
So
you put your
powerful.
boundary.
That is a huge takeaway. I love that. I like the way you said boundaries are not barriers, there are bridges. Like, how good is that? Because you're not stopping people, you're just managing the flow, right? So that you're in control and it's not just a barrage of things happening. That's how I visualize it anyway. You
Yes,
tell me if I'm wrong.
absolutely.
I see it like that, right? You've created a bridge so that people can only go through that way to get to you. And that makes it so powerful. And I can totally relate. I see many entrepreneurs running around trying to put out fires, trying to do so many things. They've given their VAs access to it, or their assistants access to them at any time whatsoever. They're not time blocking. They're not creating structure in their businesses. And so they're overwhelmed.
Yep.
They're struggling. They're stuck. They can't move forward. And I totally get that. I love that so much. And I can see why you're passionate about it, because I think it's a super important topic in today's fast-paced world. So taking a step back, that's a bit of the mechanics that we're talking about. Talk to me a little bit about the mindset around this, like the mechanics, putting in boundaries. I get that. That totally makes sense to me. Talk to me about the mindset around this and how that impacts businesses to scale and be able to step away from their business.
The mindset has got to be, when you're on a plane and they say put your oxygen mask on first before you put the child, even though you know that, like, as a mother, that's like so heart wrenching, that, or father or parent, you be like, your first instinct is to like save your child. But if you don't save yourself, you can't save the child.
Yeah.
Mindset, you've got to understand that if you don't put these things in place, you can't survive in business. And so the mindset has to be, I have to do this. It's a non-negotiable. I like that word. It's a non-negotiable for your peace, for your priorities, for your profit. Triple P. It's very non-negotiable if you want to be successful in business. These are the things you have to do. So basically, to me, the mindset is it's just something that has to be done. There's not an option. It's either you want to succeed or you don't. And so if you choose to succeed, then you have to put the mindset on it. These are the things I have to do to succeed, which is to set the foundation. When you put boundaries in place, you're setting a foundation for you to grow.
People should be thinking about putting in place.
There's so many. Let me think of the one that's really resonated with me. I think the mindset of you are valuable and you have something to offer the world. I have a powerful morning routine that helps me to get my mindset ready every morning, because there's always negativity out there. There's always somebody saying something. There's always stress right around the corner. But when you set your mind, because I love the word mindset, mind and set. So when you set your mind on positive things, then you set your mind on the things that move you forward. You don't allow your mind to move. What I do is I start my morning by setting my mind on positive affirmations, on no distractions. I actually put my phone in airplane mode when I go to sleep, and I don't turn it back on. I don't listen to the news. I don't do anything until I'm done with my personal devotional time, my personal time. And then I go into the world and I wake up 2 hours earlier than the rest of my family, because this helps my mindset. Once I have taken care of me, I put myself in the correct mindset to handle the day. That's what sets me up. But a lot of times what people do is they just roll out of bed, alarm clock's waking them up. They have no plan, and they just roll into the day and everybody's pulling at them, especially like if you're a mom. Or I have a soft space for moms, but as soon as you wake up, it's like kid and husband and lunch and everything. And if you don't take the time for yourself, you've already
Yeah.
set yourself up for bad mindset day. To me, mindset is preparation. Mindset is proactive. I don't think mindset is this woo-woo thing. I think mindset is setting your mind on things that will help you be productive, things that will help you have peace, things that will give you good outcomes. But if you choose to set your mind on negative things, and you choose to set your mind on distraction, and you choose to set your mind on things that are going to drain you, then that's where your mindset will be. So you get to choose your mindset. It's where you set your mind.
I love that. That's so true. And so I think a lot of people can resonate with that. Waking up in the morning and taking, I think a lot of entrepreneurs who are in busy mind frames sometimes can relate that there's a lot going on. I love that idea of taking a minute, hour, 2 hours, whatever in the morning to set your mind in a place where it's ready to perform for the rest of the day. I think that's so powerful. Very good takeaway.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, in your initiatives like Thrive, you've dedicated to support women entrepreneurs. What specific challenges do you believe women face in scaling their businesses, and how does your program address them?
So I do want to put it out there that I serve everybody, women and men. Obviously, my passion is towards women just because I'm a woman and I started at the age of 17. I was a single mom, everything. And I know that as women, they do struggle more, like not struggle, but like we have a lot to do, right? And so, when women decide to start a business, they still have to juggle their children, their husband, their household. They're usually the one taking care of most of the stuff, right? Most of the time. So it's a lot harder for them. And so Help Her Thrive was created to help her thrive in life, in business, and in relationship. Is what I mean by relationship is a relationship for herself and towards her business. So at Help Her Thrive, I help to build personal resilience, which is doesn't matter how much money you make in life. If you don't have the resilience to keep it, it all goes away. So I help them to build personal resilience so that they can continue to stay in the game. I also help them to build a resilient business, which is a business set up around systems and not based on their time. And so that's what they do in my academy. They come in, I help them. We do coaching, we do group coaching, individual coaching. They come to Resilient Business Bootcamp, which is all part of the academy. And that's where we set up in those 3 days, those systems so that they can walk away and have more time for self-care and have more time for themselves.
So it's kind of a foundational process for helping ladies, entrepreneurs, I like to call them lady bosses, get set up and create a business that's sustainable, resilient, and built for the long term, right? Through the system development process that you have.
Absolutely. The
Awesome. So
foundation.
you got the foundations, right? So let's talk about your event strategies, the Resilient Business Bootcamp workshops that you do. What is it that people get the most value from by doing this process with you?
So yeah, I have a 3-day event, the Resilient Business Bootcamp, that you literally come in 3 days we install systems and we talk about the boundaries. We have you set your boundary. And when I say set, people are like, what do you mean by set? I will literally have people opening their calendar. We create a calendar, we block out dates, we set our prices, we put in contracts. So we don't just talk about the boundaries, we set the boundaries at the bootcamp. Then my Resilient Business Bootcamp has 6 stages. And so we implement the 6 stages in the bootcamp. And one of them is the 3rd stage, best practices and systems. So we put in best practices for your business. We write them out and we create a onboarding manual, SOPs and things so that you can give it to an employee. We create a job description and we create your lead gen, your sales process system. Certain systems that you need that you could literally walk away from your business, or if you want to go on vacation, God forbid anything happens, you're not tied down to being the person to do everything. So that is the biggest thing that they get in the 3 days is it's an implementation workshop where we actually install these things.
Oh, so you said you had a 6-phase or 6-step process. Can you go through that? Tell me what that looks like. Not tell me, what are those phases, the stages?
Yep. So right here, my first stage is personal resilience. Like I said, without personal resilience, you can't do anything. Then we have visionary leadership.
Yep.
I walk people how to become a visionary leader. Visionary leaders are strategic. They have the vision and communicate the vision. Then we have best practices and systems. That's what I was talking about, is understanding what best practices for your small business and the systems you need. Then we automate things, and then we increase the value of your prices. And, this is all whole stage of like selling value versus just by pricing. And then asset protection, huge, huge one, which is protecting your life, protecting your domain, protecting your trademarks, your copyrights, a lot of things that people wouldn't think about. So basically, I take them through this, which is a foundation for a business to stay resilient. So that's why it's called the Resilient Business Blueprint. These are the 6 phases that I basically implemented in my business, that I sat down and got inspiration and realized that every business needs these 6 phases in my system so that they can build a business that's sustainable and resilient and last the test of time.
Wow. I love that. That's super, super cool. I'm really impressed with all that stuff. And so you have a resilient business, and this is a business that you can step away from, right?
Yes.
That's not reliant on you all the time being there, right?
Yes.
That's a huge outcome. I think that is amazing. And how long have you been doing this for?
Oh, wow. A little bit over a year for the Resilient Business Blueprint. Like I said, I've been in business
Brilliant.
for 30 years. I realized that the system got birthed during COVID, and then I launched the system in 2023. And then I had my first
Wow.
event in 2024. And I've had 4 different cohorts go through my Resilient Business Bootcamp kind of a thing. So it's been amazing to see. Sometimes you have something there and you don't know what it is. And you really need to sit down and think about what it is. And once you figure it, type it out and realize there's a system to something.
So good. So talk me through, you've obviously got some client results. Talk me through some of your clients, even one of your clients. You don't have to give me her name, but talk me through some of the processes, like they were at this place and you've helped them through this journey. Walk me through that.
Yeah. So I have a particular client that just comes to my mind when you say that when she first came to me, no lead gen, no Stripe, like no way to collect payments, no contracts, no sales process, basically nothing. Basically, we created several things on spot in those 3 days, walked away, stayed with her for a year in the academy. She went from using a Square app to collect payments and everything looking just janky, as people like to say, to having a professional booking landing page, collecting payments, having a calendar. She went from having no income she's an event planner, to launching a whole new business in the event space, and then launching retreats based on part of our creative sessions in our academy. She's now launched 2 different businesses while she's been in the academy, and has a successful lead gen now, and been able to also use some of the strategies to get JV partners on her retreat. It's been amazing. She's one of my that I think about when I see her journey from where she started to how she's grown. I would say that's huge. And there's a few others that have a great story, but that one I just remember as far as how far she's come.
So she came in with not a lot. She was obviously a business person and has had some income or something coming in from somewhere, but she came to you to help build her business. What I can hear, you've taken what she has and totally evolved it, made it better, improved it. Some people might say you pimped it out
Yeah.
and gave her all the extra stuff that she needed and the infrastructure, the contracts, going through all your process that you help people with to build a resilient business. And she's come out on the other end very successful, running multiple events, businesses, and having a successful entrepreneurship. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much in a nutshell.
So you are helping, this is one of your ways that you help people, is you run a 3-day boot camp where you take people over 3 days who might be struggling with business. You give them the infrastructure, the systems, the tools, so that they can build a resilient business, so that they can have a business that runs by itself without relying on them.
Yes.
What an amazing offer. I love that. So tell me, Dr. Tuby, how can people get a hold of you if they want to do business with you in the future?
Yeah, you can go to my link tree, which has all of my information there. You can book a call with me. You can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Tuby Akinlosotu. Also the same Dr. Tuby Akinlosotu on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. So my link tree is the best place to all of my information, and you have my book a call is there as well. I help people in so many different ways. I also help people with their converting. And one of the things I did want to mention is sales is something we talk about in the boot camp, because without a sales in a business, you only have a hobby. So I really take them through the sales process of how to make sure they're making sales. So that's part of the reason people struggle, and you can't have a resilient business if there's no sales coming in. You really help people in business to understand how to convert, make sales. So they do that at the boot camp, and I also extend that out. I have people in my academy that are brick and mortar and online, so they're all mixed up. But they can all benefit from these kind of things, especially sales is very important. Keep a business going, especially in these turbulent times. So if they go to my link, they'll have all these different things. You might see some different types of information. You're like, but she didn't talk about that. That's because I also help people in that space as well.
So good, guys. We will put that link in the description below. It's been an honor talking to you, Dr. Tuby. I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome.